if we are one, how do we exercise the power of our collective consciousness? How do we find and connect with our spiritual tribe? In our last episode, we were graced with an insightful interview featuring Aaron Lucero, a wonderful soul and master shamanic energy medicine practitioner, certified through the Four Winds Institute. Her work as a shamanic energy healer centers on the deep connection between mind, body, and spirit, where she guides others to release energetic blockages and return to their natural state of balance and radiance. We spoke on a myriad of topics, including our shared collective consciousness through awakening and resonance. But if we are one, how do we go about finding and co-creating with other awakened souls who are moving toward a shared union within a oneness consciousness? How do we create and or find our tribe as we move forward on this challenging road to a new world, a new earth? Hi, I'm Daryl T. Johnson, a musician, a teacher, and a QHHT hypnosis practitioner. I'd like to welcome you to episode 24 and part 1 of a two-part series on If We Are One. Hello, and welcome to part 1 of a two-part series that will talk about collective spiritual resonance and how we can, as awakened souls, come together to create community and spiritual solidarity during this most significant time of planetary transition and change. In one of my earlier writings, I said, "You are spiritually sovereign. It is time to lift illusion's veil, for true and lasting peace will not be realized on this earth until we finally discard tribal thinking with a clear and unwavering shift of consciousness into the realization that we are all divine, loving sparks of God, of all that is, that I am you and you are me, that we are one." So if you're listening to this, it is because at some level you already know you are spiritually sovereign. You are not just a role, a body, a label, or a story moving through time. You are a divine, conscious spark of God's source, temporarily experiencing life through a human lens. And if that's true for you, it's true for everyone. I am you from a different point of view, and you are me, and ultimately, we are one. Yet within my quoted words lies a paradox. While my earlier quote still holds true, my use of the word tribe was referenced from the traditional homogeneous perspective, which usually infers bloodlines, race, ethnicity, culture, ideology, and the like. But the more you awaken to oneness, the more alone you can feel in a world still organized around separation. You begin to see through the old tribal structures, race, nationality, religion, ideology, as the primary definition of tribe. And something in you quietly steps back. You're still there, still present, but you no longer fully belong to the old game. And because of that, the path forward can feel like walking on a ridgeline, vast sky above, but not too many people sharing the trail beside you. So today, I want to talk directly into that space. I want to explore what it means to move from cultural and identity-based tribal identity into what I will call a consciousness tribe, or a tribe of spiritual resonance. And I want to introduce another layer underneath all of this, and that is the shared reincarnation story, the sense that many of us have come back together now for a kind of collective do-over. So let's start with the word tribe. For many of us, tribe has meant something like my people, the ones who look like me, share my ethnicity, my culture, my religion, my politics, or my social identity. These forms of tribe have given us survival, safety, shared stories, and traditions. They've helped us endure trauma, oppression, and hardships. In that sense, they are not wrong or something to be dismissed. They have their important place. We can think of these as the old categories. There are cultural tribes bonded by language, customs, and shared history. There are racial tribes bonded by ancestry and physical appearance, often marked by deep generational wounding and resilience. There are religious tribes bonded by belief systems, sacred texts, rituals, and institutions that tell us who we are and who God is. And there are ideological or political tribes bonded by opinions, causes, and the sense of being on the right side of a debate. These structures can give us a sense of belonging, but they can also keep us stuck in us versus them. They can become walls just as easily as they become homes. And when your consciousness starts to stretch beyond those walls, when you feel in your gut that the person on the other side is also a facet of the same source, you begin to outgrow those old tribes as your primary sense of identity. You might notice it in subtle ways. You can't participate in certain conversations anymore because they're rooted in anger, hatred, or superiority. You feel your body tightening when people speak in absolutes. Those people, that kind of person. You feel less interested in arguing and more interested in understanding. You may even feel grief as you realize that some of the spaces that once felt like home now feel too small for who you are becoming. If this is you, I want you to know nothing is wrong with you. You are not failing your culture. You are not betraying your roots. You are simply remembering a deeper layer of identity, one that doesn't erase your culture or history, but includes them inside something wider, more spacious, and more loving. This deeper identity is what I mean when I say consciousness tribe. It's not a new religion. It's not a new elite club. And it's certainly not the awakened people against the unawakened people. If that's where we land, we've just built another separation, another wall, another hierarchy. No. A consciousness tribe is not based on similarity of appearance, belief, or background. It is based on resonance. It's the gathering of beings, human and more than human, who are willing to live from the remembrance that we are each unique expressions of the same source. In a tribe of resonance, you might sit in a circle with people whose race, culture, and theology are completely different from yours, and still you feel more deeply at home than you ever did in a room full of people who look like you. You might connect more deeply with someone from another country who doesn't share your language perfectly, but who shares your commitment to love, truth, and inner alignment. You might find that your closest allies are not just humans at all, but also the trees that you sit with, the animals that you learn from, the river that holds your grief, and the land that remembers your footsteps. Because oneness doesn't stop at the human species. If you are truly a spark of God's source, then so is every tree, every bird, every drop of water, every stone, every breeze. Gaia, the living earth, is not a backdrop. She is not a resource. She is a conscious, living being in whose body we are walking, breathing, learning, and evolving. At some point, our awakening has to grow from a private inner realization, I am one with all, into a relational realization. How do I live, decide, and steward my life as if this is true? How do I walk as a seamless steward of the earth instead of an entitled owner standing above it? And this is where tribe becomes crucial, because as you start to live this way, you need mirrors. You need companions. You need people and places and beings that help you stabilize in this new consciousness. You need people who understand what you mean when you say, I can't live in this old pattern anymore, even though it would be easier. You need people who won't gaslight you and your sensitivity when you say, this place feels wounded, this land is speaking to me, this animal is reflecting something to me. You need people who remind you that you're not crazy, you're not alone. You're simply perceiving more of what's actually true. And there's another layer to this consciousness tribe that many of you feel, even if you've never put words to it. It's the sense that this is not your first time here, that you have stood on this earth before, in other bodies, other eras, other cultures, that you have loved and lost, built and destroyed, prayed and despaired, in cycles that span far beyond this single lifetime. And that some of the people who are in your life now, from your closest family and allies to your sharpest challengers, have traveled with you before. As a QHHT hypnosis practitioner who has facilitated many amazing past life regressions from people of all walks of life, I know of what I speak. From this perspective, a consciousness tribe is not just a group of like-minded souls you happen to bump into in this year or the next. It is a soul cohort, a traveling company, a group of beings who have reincarnated together again and again to explore certain lessons, heal certain wounds, and eventually anchor a much higher frequency of love and wisdom on this planet. Many of us carry cellular memories of collective traumas. We remember in our bones times when we tried to live differently and were punished for it. Times when we used spiritual knowledge for control instead of service. Times when we aligned with fear, with power over, with separation, even when we knew better. Those memories may show up as irrational fears, intense reactions to certain symbols or events, or a deep, almost ancient grief that doesn't fit the details of this life. And yet, you are here again. We are here again, on the same earth, but at a turning point unlike any we've ever known before. So, what if this lifetime is indeed a mass do-over, a collective retake, an agreed upon chapter where many souls who once made choices rooted in fear and domination return together to make different choices, consciously, courageously, in the same theater where the old drama played out. When I talk about consciousness tribe, I'm also talking about this. We are the ones who came back. We came back to bear witness to the unraveling of old structures and to birth in a new world. We came back to stand at the crossroads where humanity has stood many times before and to choose a different road. We came back to face, not avoid, the karmic consequences of our previous actions, individually and collectively, and to transmute them into wisdom, compassion, and right action. This is why the stakes are so high now. This is why your awakening feels so personal and so planetary at the same time. You are not just working on yourself. You are participating in a vast group healing that stretches across lifetimes. Think about it this way. If, in another era, you used your power to dominate, this lifetime may invite you to use your power to empower. If, in another era, you stayed silent when harm was done, this lifetime may push you to speak, to stand, to intervene with love and clarity. If in another era you clung to a rigid tribe that excluded and dehumanized others, this lifetime may be asking you to build tribes that are radically inclusive at the soul level, while still discerning at the level of behavior and integrity. Remember, we are not here to shame our past lives. We are here to understand them, to forgive them, and to choose differently together. And that together matters because many of the karmic patterns we're healing are not individual. They are group patterns. Wars are group patterns. Religious persecution is a group pattern. Colonization is a group pattern. Environmental destruction is a group pattern. It is fitting then that the healing also happens in groups, in consciousness tribes, in circles of souls who say across lifetimes, this time we are going to do it differently. This time we are going to remember who we are. This time we are going to use our free will to align with love, with truth, with stewardship, not just for ourselves, but for the entire web of life. So, when you feel that strange, deep recognition with someone you just met, when you are drawn to a piece of land as if it were an old friend, when an animal companion arrives in your life and changes you for more than seems reasonable, when you hear a teaching and feel not, this is new, but I've heard this before long ago, you may be touching that shared reincarnational story. You may be feeling your soul group. You may be feeling the other players in this great do-over. And here's the empowering part. You don't have to remember every past life detail for this to matter. What matters is the choice you are making now. When you catch yourself repeating an old pattern of fear and you pause, that's karma shifting. When you choose to forgive where you once would have retaliated, that's karma shifting. When you decide to protect the earth where you once would have exploited it, that's karma shifting. When you build community based on resonance instead of division, that's karma shifting. Every time you do this, you are not only healing yourself, you are adjusting the trajectory of your entire soul group. You are helping to rewrite the pattern at a collective level. So, if as you're listening, some part of you is whispering, yes, I came back for this, trust that. If you feel that pull toward a different kind of belonging beyond bloodline and ideology, you're feeling your mission. And you might be wondering, okay, but how? How do I find these people? How do I actually build this kind of tribe in my everyday life? Because it's one thing to feel the call. It's another thing to live it. To find allies, to create spaces where the vibration can actually land and grow. So in part 2 of our next episode, we're going to get very practical. We're going to talk about how to clean up your energetic broadcast so your soul cohort, your soul group, can actually recognize you. How to come out of hiding and become visible to the very people you've been praying to meet. How to create small, powerful containers, both in person and online, where consciousness tribes can form organically. And how to include the plants, animals, elements, and Gaia herself as active, present members of your tribe. Not as metaphors, but as real, living relationships. So if you've ever thought, I know I'm here for something, but I feel like a lone lighthouse on a dark coast. Part 2, episode 25 of this podcast is for you. We're going to explore how we as lighthouses find one another and how together we become a whole illuminated planet. So for now, just let this land. You are spiritually sovereign. You have not arrived here by accident, and you are not the only one who is remembering. We'll be talking more about this in part 2, so stay tuned. And we'll also be discussing other topics in future episodes. With this in mind, if there is anything that you would like me to discuss or any questions that you may have about anything that I have shared, please feel free to mention it by leaving a question or a comment in the comments section. As always, if you have found any of this information at all helpful or enlightening, please like, subscribe, and share with others. I appreciate those of you who are letting others know about this podcast, and I continue to be astounded by the growing number of souls awakening worldwide to this ongoing movement to a oneness consciousness. The tribe is growing. So as always, I send you my love. And if we are one, let's all live in peace, love, and joy.